Oh, I met him already when I was a young man. I lived in New York, and he was married to my sister for many years. But he then came from England back to New York, and yeah, then of course I met him all the time, but I had my own profession, and I didn't intend to work with him. I started working with him only in '69, like 6 years later. I went back to Germany and Switzerland. I got married, we had a baby, and all this was a long time ago. And then he asked me, because I got to know him then very well, I came to London quite often, whether I would like to join him to go to Romania on a film project on Napoleon in my profession, which had to do with planning and data processing and all this kind of stuff. And so I thought that was a good idea. My wife also thought it might be a nice idea. Romania, because they had a cavalry. And at that time, you needed a real cavalry. You couldn't use horses and riders. That looks ridiculous. So you need, and there were only Eastern European countries that still had a cavalry. Soviet Union, Poland, Czechoslovakia, etc., and Romania. But then MGM pulled out, and I was already in England for pre-production, and I was maybe going back to Zurich or Germany or New York or whatever. And Stanley thought, well, we are working together so well, why don't we do something else? My wife loved England, I liked him, he liked me, and so it developed. That's how it started. Because basically what I'm doing, I'm not an artist. It has nothing to do with what you see on the screen. Maybe music a little bit. Music, I made suggestions, but he made all the decisions. My job was organizing things, getting the right things at the right time for the right price, negotiating, getting rights, getting permissions, stuff like this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the friendship relationship doesn't really matter at all. I worked with him as a member of the crew. I did what he wanted. I tried to get what he wanted. If I couldn't get it, I went back and said, I couldn't get that permission, I couldn't get that person, whatever it is, make an alternative. I was not a creative producer. I was a person who delivered, if he could, what was wanted. And if it wasn't there, then you had to come with an alternative. So, give you practical examples. Full Metal Jacket. We needed tanks from the Vietnam period. The Americans wouldn't deliver tanks because the Americans didn't want to have anything to do with the army with Stanley Kubrick after Dr. Strangelove. These bridges were burned. So we needed, however, 3 really American tanks from the Vietnam period. This was already 25 years out of date. We found 3 tanks at the Belgian army. So I went to Antwerp, talked myself up to the right officer, and told him that I would like to hire these 3 tanks, which I know he had, and I also know he didn't need them anymore. And he said, well, it's true, we don't need them because they're totally outdated, but hiring out tanks is not something the Belgian army does. It's not possible. Well, so we talked back and forth. He was a very nice man, So the negotiations ended in him saying, look, just bring them back. Well, I was very, very lucky. So then, you have to get transport company and the police at night and yellow light and green light and I don't know what to get this stuff to the ferry boat to go to England. That was fine. So that's one of the deals. That's not creative. That's negotiating. That's trying to find out what is wanted. On Eyes Wide Shut, he originally wanted the so-called orgy. It's not an orgy. It's a modern hell. Right? For Kubrick, it was a modern hell. It was like a Hieronymus Bosch type hell, but today. So, and he had all these voyeurs, because never mind the girls don't really matter, they're just dressing. It's the voyeurs, that's what it is, these guys who are standing there, right? And they had elegant half masks, and they were in tuxedos. That's no good, it's not good. They recognize each other. They meet next day in a board meeting. That's not good. No, we need full masks and full cloaks. Where do we get quickly full masks? Oh, okay, so they all had to be different because these are individuals who bring their masks. So I bought all the masks in Venice. I went to Venice. I know every mask shop in Venice. I bought 250 masks. Now, is this the job of a producer? No. But if you work for Kubrick, yes. Because we were very, very few people. Very few people. We took a long time to make the film. In order to finance this, you have to have a very small crew. And people have to do many things. So the term executive producer is totally meaningless unless you know in which context. Yeah? We had in one case executive producer we never even met because they had the right to get that credit because they sold the rights to a book. I mean, so you have to really know what that means. No, I'm not a filmmaker. I made some documentaries. That's very different. And then you have to just be diligent and know what you're doing. In respect to my work with Kubrick, he is the filmmaker and alone. It's his film and everybody else contributes. The actors, the designers, the composers, everybody, including people like me. Well, I presented him as I see him. I presented him in a truthful light. Journalists didn't know him. He never talked to the press. He was invited all the time to press conferences and television, radio. He never did this. After each film, it was the same 3-4 journalists, and he knew them already, and that was it. He didn't like to explain his films. He never also countered any of these stories. He never called back. He never did anything. And they took revenge, and they wrote terrible stories about him. Well, he did, that's how it is. I remember one day there was something absolutely stupidly written about him in one of the London papers, and I really was angry. And I said, Stanley, let me talk to this guy. And I said, oh, don't, you never get rid of him. That was his attitude. So he didn't want to explain his films. It was all there. If he had something important to say about it, he would have put it into the film. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe he was wrong. So what? So he was wrong. Maybe he should have talked to the press. Well, he didn't want to. So in my film, in fact, I was very surprised that I had no problem asking people to join me. I only asked people who knew him, who had worked with him, or people he admired, like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, etc. Right? And the only person I couldn't get was Ingmar Bergman. Everybody else came along, even people like Woody Allen. He loved Woody Allen, or Jack Nicholson, who normally is difficult to get. He came along. So I was very, very pleased to see how much love and passion came from all these people to Stanley. He was much liked by people, there's no doubt about it. And many actors came back again and again and again. Think of Philip Stone. Philip Stone played the father in Clockwork Orange. He played the lawyer in Barry Lyndon. And he played Grady in The Shining. And so many actors came, they loved him. So he didn't throw things away. And there were trunks called Dr. Strangelove. They were not opened in 50 years or in 40 years at the time. He had a huge amount of boxes. Everything was thrown in. So his wife and we said after his death, what do we do with this stuff? Should we throw it away? No, let's keep it. I mean, he didn't throw it away. Why didn't he throw it away? That was the real question. And then when Frankfurt came and suggested the exhibition, we thought, well, after a while, and it was not an easy decision, because why Frankfurt? I mean, it had nothing to do with Germany. It should have been New York, or it should have been London. No, not to this day was the exhibition in either city. But then we finally decided, okay, at least we can use this stuff. And it was an enormous amount. And Frankfurt sent us a specialist, an archivar, you know, somebody who, and we went through all this and removed all private things. And then we finally came up with a collection that is educational and interesting for all people, for those who just want to be reminded of the films they knew, and also for scholars and students to get deeply into the material, and we created this exhibition. This is how it happened. You can only do two things. You either throw it away or you use it. Yeah, so and we decided to use it, and we use only part of this in the exhibition. The rest is at the University of the Arts in London. They hold now the archive. So it is kept for the future. Oh, I knew that before. There's no question. I knew that before, that he was a universal filmmaker. And it's quite interesting that, for example, the German government helped. And they said, well, he was really a universal artist, never mind America, England, or Germany. He's like a Picasso, you know, he's a world artist. So, yeah, I don't have a favorite one. I can't say that, because for me personally, it's always exciting to be in a new territory, well, like Mexico City. I've never been here before, you know, and a most interesting place. And I meet delightful people. So, but this is just a personal experience. No, Paris was wonderful, because Paris suddenly made the whole world look at it. Los Angeles was great. Sao Paulo, yeah, Berlin, Rome was wonderful. Rome, the exhibition. So I can't say, I don't have a favorite one. It's nice to have a lot of space. In some cases we had to make compromises because the space wasn't quite big enough. Here, for example, it's wonderful. We have lots of space and everything could be shown. And yeah, no, that's fine. So I guess my favorite one is the one that is very successful. And I'm quite sure this one here will be very successful, simply because to have 20 million people in the city, you know, I mean, that helps a great deal. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, so yeah, wonderful. And I wish you good luck with it, and it would be great. I think it's fantastic that it is here. Yeah.